Usually when we look at the gaming calendar, there's this predictable rhythm. You've got your massive holiday blockbusters in November, right? Then the hangover in January where, absolutely nothing happens. And then a slow ramp up to the summer. That's the safe standard cycle we've all gotten used to. But I've been looking at the release slate for February 2026, specifically what's hitting the Xbox ecosystem and the Game Pass library. And I have to say, you can just throw the calendar out the window. We're not looking at a normal month here. We're not just looking at a stack of games to fill time. We are looking at what might be the single weirdest, most experimental collection of titles to drop in a 30-day window in recent memory. If you're the kind of player who just buys the annual sports game or like the big military shooter, this month might look like a hallucination to you. But if you're the kind of person who craves that feeling of what on earth am I playing, then we need to talk. Because we have a lineup that includes a surreal philosophical journey with a nun and the devil himself. We have a sequel to a comedy shooter that, well, arguably shouldn't exist. We have a remaster of a Final Fantasy game that is so polarizing, it basically split the fan base in half 30 years ago. And we have data, hard numbers, suggesting that subscription services are fundamentally changing how we value these weird games. So let's unpack this. I want to take you through the headliners, the hidden mechanics, and the industry shifts that are happening right under our noses. Okay, let's start with the game that is currently confusing and delighting everyone who touches it. It's called Indika, and it dropped on February 2nd. Now, on paper, this sounds like the setup for a very bad bar joke. It is a third-person, story-driven adventure game set in an alternate version of 19th century Russia. You play as a young nun, and you're a traveling companion. It's the devil. I want you to just pause and really visualize that. Usually in video games, if you see a nun, she's either a background NPC or she's fighting zombies, right? In Indika, the religious trauma and the surrealism are the entire point. I've been combing through the reviews and the player feedback, and the comparison that just keeps coming up is Disco Elysium meets Inside. If you know those games, you know that is very high praise. But it also signals a very specific type of experience. This isn't a game where you're grinding for loot or trying to get a high score. The gameplay is there strictly to serve the narrative. And that narrative is heavy. We're talking about themes of faith, doubt, morality, the nature of sin. It sounds grim, doesn't it? But here's the hook. It's also incredibly bizarre and darkly funny. The devil isn't just some scary monster. He's a character. He interacts with you. The world itself is this distorted, trippy reflection of reality. What I love about this release is the community reaction. You know a game has struck a nerve when the Steam reviews start looking like poetry. The game is sitting at a very positive rating with thousands of reviews, but my absolute favorite metric comes from a user who described it as a 10 out of 10 on the dead chronometer. Apparently there's a recurring bit involving a deceased grandmother that becomes a metric for how much you're enjoying the game. I'm not going to spoil the context because I think you need to experience that madness for yourself. But that specific weird detail tells you everything you need to know. Indika is the art house pick of the month. It's the game you play when you want to see something you have literally never seen before. Now, if you get whiplash easily, you might want to brace yourself, because we are pivoting from 19th century Russian theological horror to, talking alien guns, High on Life 2 is hitting the service on February 13th. This is the sequel to the breakout hit from Squatch Games. And we have to be honest about the first game here. It was divisive. And that's putting it politely. It was a massive hit on Game Pass. Millions of people played it. But the critical reception was all over the map. You either love that specific brand of rapid-fire, improvisational, slightly cringe comedy, or you wanted to mute your television and throw the controller out the window. So why should you care about the sequel? I was skeptical too. But digging into the developer diaries and the early impressions, it seems like the team actually took the criticism to heart. The biggest complaint with the first game wasn't necessarily the jokes. Comedy is subjective after all. It was that the actual game part, the shooting, felt loose. It felt like a vehicle for the jokes, rather than a solid shooter in its own right. For High on Life 2, the focus has been on tightening the screws. The shooting mechanics are punchier. The traversal, how you move through these absurd alien worlds, is smoother. They've expanded the environment significantly. It is shaping up to be a day one release that actually plays well rather than just being a joke delivery system. And since it's dropping straight into the subscription, the risk factor is gone. You don't have to drop $70 to find out if the humor lands for you this time. You can just download it, see if the improved gunplay hooks you, and if the talking guns get too annoying, you can just uninstall. But given the popularity of the first one, this is undeniably a heavyweight release for the month. So we have the surreal and we have the absurd. But what if you're a history buff or masochist? Let's talk about the RPG corner, because February is bringing back a legend that is arguably the black sheep of the most famous RPG family in the world. On February 3rd, we got the Final Fantasy II Pixel Remaster. Now, if you're a casual fan, you might just see Final Fantasy and think, oh cool, crystals and chocobos.
Yeah.
But Final Fantasy II is infamous in the history of the genre. When it was originally released decades ago, the developers decided to try something radical. They looked at the standard RPG formula: kill monster, get experience points, level up, stats go up, and they said, that's not realistic. So they invented a system where you learn by doing. If you want your character to get better at using swords, you have to attack with the sword. If you want them to get better at magic, you have to cast spells. That sounds logical, right? Like Skyrim before Skyrim. But here's where it went off the rails. To increase your HP, your health points, you had to take damage. You literally had to get beaten up to become tougher. This led to one of the most hilarious strategies in gaming history, where players would enter a battle against a weak enemy, and instead of killing the enemy, they would have their own party members attack each other. You'd spend 20 minutes beating up your own friends just to grind your health stats. It was a broken, weird, experimental mess. But it was also fascinating. And this new Pixel Remaster is arguably the only way you should play it today. It keeps that unique system, so you still get to see the history, but it adds modern quality of life features. We're talking boosted experience gain, auto battle features, the ability to turn off random encounters. They've essentially kept the soul of the experiment, but removed the headache. Plus, it has a fully rearranged soundtrack by Nobuo Uematsu and beautiful new pixel art. If you want to see the moment where the franchise trying to reinvent the wheel and kind of crash the car, this is a must-play. Staying in the realm of strategy but moving to something much darker, I want to highlight a title dropping on February 19th called Death Howl. This one caught my eye because it's a genre mashup that sounds like it was generated by a mad scientist. It's being described as a Souls-like deck builder. Think about those two genres. Souls-like implies punishing difficulty, real-time dodging, dark atmosphere, losing your progress when you die. Deck builder implies turn-based strategy, card synergies, and careful planning. Mashing them together creates this really tense, cerebral experience. It features environmental puzzles and a very moody, dark fantasy aesthetic. It was an indie darling on PC last year, and now it's coming to consoles. If you're the kind of person who likes to obsess over card synergies while simultaneously being terrified of what's around the corner, this is for you. And while we're on the topic of deep strategy, I have to mention Menace, which hits PC on February 5th. This is from the developers of Battle Brothers. If that name rings a bell, you know exactly what you're in for. Battle Brothers is legendary for being unforgiving. You manage a mercenary company, and your characters will die, get maimed, suffer permanent injuries. It's brutal. Menace takes that brutal tactical depth and moves it to a sci-fi setting. We are talking squad-based combat on hostile alien worlds, where terrain management and squad composition are the difference between life and death. It looks incredibly complex, the kind of game where you look up at the clock and realize it's 4 a.m. Now, I want to pivot away from the new releases for a moment. I want to talk about something I noticed while analyzing the data for this episode. We often obsess over what's new. We look at the Coming Soon tab. But there's a really interesting phenomenon happening with older games on Game Pass. The service isn't just a launch pad, it's becoming a resurrection machine. And I have a perfect case study for this. Death Stranding Director's Cut. This game was added to the service in late January. Now, Death Stranding is the definition of a slow burn. It's Hideo Kojima's game about delivering packages in a post-apocalyptic America. It's weird, it's long, and it was originally a PlayStation exclusive years ago. Before it hit Game Pass on the Xbox platform in the US, it was ranked 501st in active users. 501st. That's basically dead. It was off the radar. Then it drops into the subscription service. In the week commencing January 24th, it shot up to 16th place. Just think about that trajectory. From 501 to 16 in a single week. It didn't quite crack the top 10. I mean, those spots are usually held by the juggernauts like Call of Duty and Fortnite, but it is rubbing shoulders with the biggest games of the platform. This insight is crucial because it tells us something about player psychology. Death Stranding is a hard sell at $70. Hey, do you want to pay full price to walk across mountains and rock a baby to sleep? Nay.
Yeah.
That's a niche pitch. But when the barrier to entry is removed, when it's just free with your subscription, suddenly millions of people are willing to take that risk. They're willing to be curious. It proves that the long-tail economy is real. Games can have a second, massive life years after release if they're put in front of the right audience with the right frictionless access. And for the record, the reviews for the Director's Cut are stellar. Pure Xbox gave it a 10/10. So if you're one of those people who skipped it because it looked too weird, well, the data suggests you're not alone in finally giving it a shot. Speaking of confusion and things people are curious about, I need to do a little rumor control. If you've been on Twitter or Reddit lately, you've probably seen hype about a game called Cairn. It's a realistic climbing survival game. It looks intense, very physical gameplay, managing stamina, not falling to your death. There's been a lot of chatter asking, is this coming to Game Pass? Let's see. I drilled down to find the source of this rumor, and it is a classic case of bad messaging. The game was featured in a broadcast called the PC Gaming Show. That entire broadcast was sponsored by Xbox Game Pass, so the logo powered by Xbox Game Pass was plastered on the screen the whole time. Naturally, people saw the game, saw the logo, and did the math. But here's the reality check. There has been no official announcement from Microsoft or the developers about Cairn coming to the service. In fact, right now, there isn't even an Xbox console version announced. It's only confirmed for PC and PS5. So despite the hype and despite how cool the game looks, do not bank on playing this with your subscription. It's better to know that now than to be disappointed later. Okay, let's talk about free stuff. I love finding loopholes in these subscription ecosystems. I found a really interesting one this month involving a crossover between Sea of Thieves and Webtoons. If you don't know, Webtoons is a massive platform for digital comics. They've launched a new official comic called Sea of Thieves: The Last Bite. It follows a new ship and crew, expands the lore. Here is the deal. It works both ways. If you are already a Game Pass subscriber, you can go to your perks gallery and claim 1 month of Webtoon Premium for free. That gets you coins and ad-free reading. It's a nice little bonus. But here's the real hack. If you are not a Game Pass subscriber, or maybe you have a friend who's been on the fence, reading the comic on the Webtoon app can actually generate a code for 1 month of Xbox Game Pass Premium for free. And here's the kicker, the detail that actually matters. It requires no payment info. Usually when you get a free trial, they want your credit card so they can auto-renew you the second the month ends. This offer doesn't require that. It is a genuine free month. The deadline to claim this is February 13th, 2026. So if you want to play Indika or High on Life 2 or try Death Stranding and you don't want to pay a dime, go read the pirate comic. It's a rare, no-strings-attached promo that is worth grabbing. Before we wrap this up, I want to do a rapid-fire round through the rest of the month. We focus on the big, weird headliners, but the bench is surprisingly deep this February. On February 12th, we have Ride 6. If you're into motorcycle racing, this is basically the gold standard. The physics are incredibly demanding, the bikes look photorealistic. It's the Gran Turismo of bikes. On the same day, we get Blaze Blue, Entropy Effect X. Now, Blaze Blue is a famous fighting game series, but this is a spin-off. It's a side-scrolling action roguelike. It's fast, colorful, very flashy. On February 13th, which is a huge day, thanks to High on Life 2, we also get Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. This one's for the cozy gamers. It mixes farming simulation with action RPG elements. You grow crops, you fight monsters, you maybe get married. It's a vibe. Looking further ahead, on February 26th, keep an eye out for Towerborn. This is a new action-adventure brawler that has had really good buzz from previews. And closing out the month on the 27th, we have Resident Evil Requiem and Tales of Berseria Remastered. I do need to make one important clarification here, though. I see this confusion all the time. There is a difference between new on Xbox and new on Game Pass. A huge example this month is Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. That is launching on the Xbox platform in February. For JRPG fans, that is monumental. But as of this recording, it is not confirmed for Game Pass. You can buy it, you can play it, but don't sit there refreshing your subscription tab waiting for it to appear. Always check the label before you get hyped. So when we zoom out and look at this picture, Russian nuns, talking guns, self-flagellating Final Fantasy heroes, and deck-building Souls-likes, what's the takeaway? For me, the theme of February 2026 is curiosity. This isn't a month about playing the thing you know you love. It's a month about playing the thing you aren't sure about. The value of the service right now isn't just that it saves you money on games you were going to buy anyway. The value is that it removes the risk from the games you wouldn't buy. I doubt many of us would drop full price on Indika without knowing what it is. It's too weird. It's too risky. But in this ecosystem, you download it on a whim. You play it for 20 minutes. And maybe, just maybe, you discover that a philosophical conversation with the devil is exactly the gaming experience you needed. And I want to leave you with one final thought, going back to those Death Stranding numbers. We saw a game jump from rank 501 to 16 just by becoming accessible. That proves that the subscription model is becoming a lifeline for these experimental, slow-burn titles. But here's the provocative question I want you to mull over. If subscription services are the only way weird games can find a mass audience in 2026, what does that do to the industry creatively? Does it mean we'll see more experimental games being made because developers know there's a safety net? Or does it mean developers will be too afraid to launch anything strange unless they have a Game Pass deal signed, sealed, and delivered before they even start coding? Are we entering an era where weird is only allowed to exist if it's free? It's something to think about while you're downloading that Nun game. Go play something strange this month. You might just surprise yourself. Thanks for tuning into this breakdown, and I'll catch you in the next one.